Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn is out today, so you get a full hour with us. Stu, what was your top story today?
First of all, we apologize for that.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's just us. I'm going to go with the trade situation. Trump tried to put these tariffs on aluminum. It's a talk about that.
Yeah, Pat.
I'm going to go with the education we're receiving from the Parkland students.
Okay, they're busting.
Yeah.
They're busting.
Okay.
They're what?
They've had
We
a
stop.
Canceled the show.
There's an audio issue.
Apparently, that was so bad. Whatever you said
It
was
really
so bad.
You broke the mic.
broke the freaking television network.
I don't think you're allowed to say something bad about the students. That's why.
Okay.
If you say something, we'll have to keep stopping.
You can apologize. That's it.
They accept the apology also.
Right. Which is big of them.
Very,
God,
very
that's
big.
Magnanimous,
huge.
isn't it?
Yeah. These are wonderful children. Wonderful.
Sweet. Innocent.
Probably not it.
You're doing a talk show, boot camp. Oh. We're kind of part of it. Dom is there, I think. Dom is too.
You guys can go at my place. I really don't want to go.
I just think it's odd.
I just, hey,
Yeah.
or
it'd been kind of cool.
Is that this
Yeah,
is
that's
kind of
good. It's
creepy,
just
right?
odd.
Yeah, Stu's like, what the? Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn is out today, so you're stuck with us. Stu, what was the top story for you?
I think this wonderful idea for us to trade away this really positive economic news we've had lately and get rid of that because it's getting in the way and let's fire up this trade war to destroy our economy. Big fan of that.
I'm still somewhat concerned about our Second Amendment rights.
Okay.
Yeah, I am too, but I got sucked into the Oscar talk. I didn't want to. There was just so much garbage, and I had to make some solid points about that.
Jason.
The Oscars, I did not watch, but mostly because I couldn't stand the hypocrisy. Mostly what was triggering me was the little gun control pins, little orange gun control pins they were all wearing.
Yeah.
I got a little insight on some of that.
All right, we'll get into that. Stu, why does this whole tariff trade war matter?
Because it makes absolutely no sense. First of all, it's terrible timing. The economy is doing very well. We've obviously been happy about that since Trump has taken over, and really
That's probably been his biggest.
Yeah, that and the judges.
Yeah.
Really, if you're going to praise Trump, you're probably going to take those two things on.
Which is actually pushing the trade deficit. The better our economy gets, the larger it gets.
Yes, Jason. Yes, that is one of the things. The trade deficit is it's a worthless statistic in the year 2018. It is, we talked about this before, but it's like if you go to Domino's and you give them $10 in exchange for a pizza, you have a $10 trade deficit with Domino's. Does that mean that you didn't like that transaction? No, you got the pizza for the amount of money that you paid for it. It's not the trade deficit doesn't.
I wouldn't
work like
the transaction because I don't like Domino's.
God, you and this food thing is driving me crazy. We've been doing this show for like 2 weeks. I'm already sick of it. But so they have to. When you have one of these situations, you have to ask yourself, I guess, three things, right? Will it work? Right? Will these trade tariffs, will they work?
And the answer to that is, of course, yes.
No.
It's going to work.
Sure. It will not work.
Right?
It's always worked.
So often it's worked.
It has never worked. In fact, the last time we did this with steel, it cost $1.3 million per job. $1.3 million per job.
Yeah, but how many jobs did we get?
I don't know the exact number, but not a lot. Not a lot. It does not help. It just doesn't help. Then there's the idea of a trade war, right? So you have a trade war where it could be that we put these tariffs on other countries, and other countries fire back at us, right? They raise things, and they raise their tariffs. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. There's already talk about it, and that is somewhat of a big talking point in the media. But we don't know what's going to happen with that yet. It's possible. The United States has a lot of economic power.
It's not like we have a reference, like Smoot-Hawley.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That didn't happen.
It definitely happened. With
Okay, so we're good.
It's happened over and over and over again. But maybe that won't happen. That's still speculation. The third thing, though, you have to ask, and nobody's focusing on, is are the conditions even appropriate to add a tariff to the steel industry, even if it does work? Like, what kind of world do we have to be in? You think that if we have no steel capacity, Trump keeps saying our steel industry is dead. Well, we are the fourth largest steel producing country in the world. Fourth. We haven't been higher than second. I think in 1980 we were second to Japan, but we've been second for a long time. It's not like we've led this industry. But what percentage of steel that the U.S. uses do we actually make? The answer to that is 72.5%. We already dominate this market. And the idea
that you're happy with a C.
I am not happy with a C, unless you want to be North Korea. North Korea, and not even North Korea, because North Korea is importing a bunch of steel from China. But North Korea at least could theoretically argue that they have 100% of their market. If you're involved in a global economy at all, which we theoretically want to be, considering we're a free market, 72% is basically dominating a market. And China, who's supposed to be the country that we're punishing here, only has 3% of the U.S. steel market. 3%. What are we trying to do to them? Get them to 2? Is that the goal of this policy?
It's a good point, because most people think this is directed straight at China. But China, I think, is they're number 11. They're not even in the top 10. Yeah. Actually, Canada, I believe, is our largest. And
so we're beating the crap out of the Blue Jays. And I don't know why. That seems to be our target.
Over the weekend, the Washington Post had an article on tariffs and imports and how it's going to affect small towns and different. And this may shock you, but they missed some things.
No.
Yes, yeah, I know, right?
No.
The town they focused on is my hometown, Ashtabula, Ohio. And it talked about how it's going to negatively affect it and how they have missed major portions of things like union-run city, Democrat control forever. They've missed all of that. So if you're going to try to pin some, albeit probably some mistakes that might be made in the future on what has happened to counties or towns like Ashtabula, you've missed a whole lot.
Well, I also think it's important to note, I know this was a big talking point in his platform when he was running, that he was going to bring, these jobs back to the country. But I think no one's talking about the fact that a lot of these jobs are lost because of automation.
Yeah, that's exactly
It's not necessarily that we're losing to foreign competitors all the time. It's just that I think I read in 1980, it took 10 man-hours to produce 1 ton of steel. And today it takes like 2.
Yeah. I mean,
so those jobs are not coming back.
This is nothing but a positive, right? I mean, this is a wonderful, incredible thing that's happened in our society, that we've been able to do things like that. And it's with product after product after product. These are not negative things. The latest report has come out that these tariffs will cost about 145,000 U.S. jobs. They will not add jobs. They will add some jobs in the steel industry at the expense of the 10 times the steel industry of people who work in fields related to steel, but not production of steel. And I mean, I think we all know this. We all know, I think at this point, that what we're talking about is a massive redistribution of wealth. When Barack Obama raised taxes to take money from Group A and give it to Group B, Obamacare recipients, welfare recipients, whoever it is, conservatives say, wait a minute, the government shouldn't be making those choices. They shouldn't be taking money from one and giving it to the other. It's a redistribution of wealth. That's what a tariff is. A tariff is a tax paid for not by the country of China or Canada or anybody else, but paid for by the companies that import these materials. And then, of course, in reality, it's paid for by you and me. So we wind up paying these taxes. It's taking money from us who do not work in the steel industry, right, and giving it to, theoretically, workers who are in the steel industry. But what is that if not a redistribution of wealth? It's the same concept we've been fighting against forever. And for whatever reason, because Trump has been, this is like the only thing he's believed his entire life, is trade protectionism. And I guess now, because he's president and he's a Republican, he's got an R by his name, we're all supposed to go along with it. But I think that's bullcrap.
Yeah. Pat, I want to move on to your concern about the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Yes. What matters here?
How long are we going to be led by 17-year-old kids? How long are we going to remain silent in the face of 17-year-old kids deciding public policy, and not just public policy, but essentially overturning the Second Amendment? I mean, I'm sure they're delightful. They're wonderful kids. I know they've been through a really hard time.
Yes.
They have.
Yes.
We all understand that. We all agree with that. But for the love of heaven, it's time to get real about this thing.
And, of course, we would be referencing the Bill Maher interview that he did with the kids, where we learned some really great things about their expertise on the subject matter. I think that we have a clip, if we could play that.
You can say that we don't know what we're talking about because we're 17 years old, but until you've been on the receiving end of an AR-15, until you've been locked into your class. Look, Wayne LaPierre, Dana Loesch.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have ever had to deal with that, but as far as I know, that's not the case. We've been locked in a classroom. We have seen our friends text their parents goodbye. We are the experts. We know exactly what we're talking about. Wow. How dare you tell us we don't know what we're...
I'm friend.
I mean, that
is embarrassing.
Okay, they're experts because they've been through a tragedy. I agree you've been through a tragedy. I disagree that makes you an expert. If you've been through a car accident, that doesn't mean you get to tell the auto industry how to make their cars safer. If you have a migraine headache, it doesn't mean you can be a brain surgeon. You're not an expert because you've been through a shooting.
No.
And then he goes on to show just how not an expert he is.
On the Second Amendment. Let's watch this.
The Second Amendment is a very, very good piece of rhetoric defense that I've seen a lot, because they put it as if we're attacking a right that you're born with. And at the end of the day, a 19-year-old...
But it is, if you're an American.
If you're an American.
Thank you,
a 19-year-old bought a weapon that you don't need to keep robbers and bears out of your house.
Forget it.
And if that kid had seen a professional for 5 minutes, they wouldn't have said you need a gun. They would have said you need a counselor. And that was just allowed to happen.
I mean, that is... he shows that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He blows right through his correction.
It's almost as if you're born with that right. Yes, in America we are.
We literally are born
well, in
with
America.
that right.
We're trying to change the policy in Zimbabwe. How do you just skip over that important point? So we've got to stand up and get real with these kids and say, I know you've been through a lot, and I hate that. Let's make school safer and leave the other discussions about the Second Amendment to the adults in the room.
This is a line-crossing interview, though, isn't it? I mean,
we
all
it is.
feel for these kids, and many of them, have not conducted themselves this way, and we should note that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you watched this interview, and you may say you want them to lead our national gun debate, but if you were a manager at McDonald's, there's no way you'd hire either one of those two kids. There's no way. Seriously, would you ever, for any job that you were hiring for, would you want someone who treated other people, who talked about other people like that?
No.
You would never do it.
No.
And by the way, I'm not saying he's wrong because he's 17. saying he's wrong because he's wrong.
Right.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
That has nothing to do with his age.
Yeah, you can be right in 17.
Absolutely.
You just don't happen to be it.
You can,
right.
but when I was 17, I thought I knew everything too.
Yeah.
When you're 17, you just believe that you know everything, and there's nobody that can tell you things you don't know. And then you go through life and you realize, I knew nothing when I was 17, almost nothing. Well, that's the case here, but everybody is just allowing them to lead us around by the nose.
And from my perspective, a big tragedy of all this is there's actually good information we could get from these kids as far as, actual actionable things that we could do to protect our schools. Like, for instance, like David Hogg, like how easy it is to walk into your school. Start at the basic right there. Like how easy. When you first walk into school, does anyone check your backpack? Is it wide open? Can you come and go as you please?
Are the doors
Things like
locked?
that. I would love to have that conversation with them. Yeah, are the doors locked? Like those you could but they don't want to discuss that because that would actually lead to something you could actually do about this.
And you know what? One of the fathers, he was at the discussion with the president last week, and he was on Face the Nation or one of those Sunday shows. And he lost his daughter, who was shot 8 times or 9 times or something and killed in this horrific tragedy. And he is saying, look, if you want to have a gun control debate, let's do that some other time. Right now, let's make the school safe. And that, if we could listen to his point of view here and understand the fact that, this is about school safety, right? It's about making the school safer. How do we do that?
Yeah, this is one of those things culturally I think is a problem too, is that it acts as sort of like the bug light where we have this bright thing and we all just kind of fly towards it. There's a lot of kids who are in this and involved in it, parents as well, that are treating the situation with the respect and seriousness it deserves. These two guys keep going on television and saying all sorts of, whatever they can to make news on Think Progress the next day. And it's not helping at all. But we shouldn't paint all of them with that broad brush. I mean, we've seen people who are supportive of the Second Amendment who have acted totally differently, and also parents who are just grieving and still want gun control but aren't acting like this.
Did truancy laws not work the same way in Florida? Because I would have moved to Florida had I seen how much time off of school these kids got when I was like 17.
I do think it's interesting. There is one outspoken 2A Second Amendment, Kyle, I believe his name is. He was a survivor of the shooting, and he's been outspoken, in support of the Second Amendment. Twitter hasn't verified him. They've verified all of the other, the activists fighting for gun control, but no one's listening to him.
It's almost like it's not really about saving kids.
Almost.
In what way?
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break, but much more when we come back. Doc, I want to make sure to get to what you said was most important to you, which was the Oscars.
News.
It's going to be painful.
News, not important to me. Let's clarify that. Okay. No, it's just it's the same scenario. It doesn't matter what award show. They say outrageous things, and we get upset. And then I realized we're really doing this wrong. We should just be laughing at them. We're not going to change them. Not going to change anything. It's just a spectacle. They're acting. That's what they're doing. They don't believe that stuff, or they would actually change their. I mean, they come out and they talk about the hashtag #MeToo movement, time's up. You could have changed it. Jimmy Kimmel last night said, we can't let men slide anymore. So you could let them slide with rape for a while.
Before.
And Jimmy Kimmel, the guy who used to have women jumping on trampolines,
Right.
So we just have to mock them. They don't really want to change it. But the thing that really got me was the two immigrants that were on stage. A lady from Zimbabwe and a guy from Pakistan, and both presenting their actors, of course, and made this passionate speech about dreamers. And if you remove the political meaning of dreamers now, the DACA kids, it was wonderful.
It started out really strong.
And again, if you didn't know that, when they're like, wow, to all of you young dreamers out there, they're right, this is what America is. People dreaming and saying, I can go and do, and you can achieve, all ruined because they meant it politically speaking.
So you said immigrants.
Yeah, and
so of course they're illegal if they're talking about the dreamers.
No, they're legal immigrants. They're legal immigrants.
Shocking.
But they referred to themselves as dreamers too, so they're kind of conflating that.
So
thing.
maybe someone needs to educate them on.
Yes, exactly right.
That even.
Right. It was like a double. I think they did it intentionally with a double meaning.
Absolutely.
Right? Like they're trying to make it seem like it was non-political, but in reality, of course, if you know any of the context, it is very political.
Of course.
It was amazing. Although I will say that movie that he was in, the guy from Pakistan, is The Big Sick.
That sounds right.
Probably my favorite movie of the year. I mean, that movie, it was so good. It's not political at all. It's just the story of him and his girlfriend, and I guess became wife.
It's like his actual story.
It's his actual story,
yeah.
and it's an incredible story. And they are. He was really likable in it. I mean, it was great. It was a great movie. But I mean, they can't just let you enjoy a movie. They just can't let it happen. They have to throw politics.
Well, by also stressing that too, if you're talking dreamers, to you dreamers out there were behind you, and they kept that theme going. Then all the minorities. Ultimately, what they're saying is, if you're from Indianapolis or St. Louis and you're just the average white kid out there, they don't care about you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're not going to give you opportunities. They don't want to hear from you, unless, of course, you're like that hog kid.
Well, I did see that the ratings were down. I think it was close to 17% from last year. So we've seen this rating slide the last few years. You would think that they would learn that we don't want to hear them preach politics to
or
us.
have the best picture be having sex with a fish. That could be another step you can make in the future.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to exclude. We all have our choices.
Well, we all remember, right, when President Bush said, I believe that human beings and fish can coexist. Not only can they coexist, they can mate. I love that. That's awesome.
Well, I just feel like, they gave this big push against Donald Trump, and against all of these politics. And the American people, at the end of the day, we have Donald Trump as president. We elected Donald Trump. I mean, wasn't that kind of proof that Americans probably aren't listening to them anymore?
But see, they've controlled culture for decades. Yeah. They even helped create Trump. And I don't mean Trump the president. I mean Trump the media star. Sure. They were behind this and loved him and all this. They said, we're going to create culture. Give us culture. And now they're offended and we can't let guys slide anymore. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Harvey Weinstein? That was on you. And by the way, we need more women directors. I don't hire directors. How come there's only so many women that ever get nominated? Do you guys nominate? Are you part of the Academy? They're part of the Academy. Don't blame that on me.
They do. They didn't treat it like it's this unstoppable force that they're resisting.
Yeah.
It's you.
You're doing it.
I don't understand it.
Be our guest.
Yeah.
Do all those things.
Absolutely.
Jason, you wanted to talk about the hypocrisy.
Oh my goodness!
What did you mean by that?
So I didn't hear that great, awful speech, but because I just decided I'm not even going to watch it. I just cannot handle it. And it came out I think a week before the actual Oscars went down that the few of them, or a large group of them, are going to wear these Michael Bloomberg sponsored pins that were these orange gun control pins, basically.
Like a flag, but it's orange.
Orange, yeah. And
you said Michael Bloomberg sponsored, and you already lost me.
But it's funny. Every single one of these celebrities have been talking about this. Mm-hmm. I cannot handle it anymore. Now, I used to work in this industry in Hollywood. I was there for 10 plus years, representing many of the people that are out there talking about this. I wish I could name names. I wish I could do it. I can't, but it would be great stories. But every single one of them had men like me with guns on their hips. Yeah. Everyone. And you see the meme, like, oh yeah, you see the tweets, like, oh yeah, you and your security detail. I was actually one of those guys. Mm-hmm. I was there with them. Those people, some of them never leave the house without that gun-toting guy. They definitely never go home to a house that isn't protected by a gun. Every single one of them, they're all guilty of this. So when they talk about this, they're basically saying, well, yeah, we have the money to pay for this. You know, like this is
Well, that's
something that we do.
question.
But you people that don't have the money to pay for some, corporation or organization that hires these, Navy SEALs, Marine recon guys.
Yeah.
Just because you can't afford that's on you.
But if they're fighting for banning guns, I mean, do you think that they just don't realize that their guns will go away too, or is it just all for show?
No, it's all for show. And it's just like what you were just talking about, the Me Too, Never Again, all that stuff. They're all wearing those pins, but they're all guilty of the same crime.
They could change all of that.
Yeah. Pat, what's your take?
I love them. I think they're so incredibly consistent.
I mean,
I didn't see that coming at all.
I know, that's what I thought, right?
I just don't. It feels like it has to get to a point eventually where it just kind of boils over that Hollywood has to understand at some point that nobody is listening to them. Everyone thinks they're hypocritical.
Yeah, and it's boiling over now, and that's why the ratings are so low. I was just reading a headline before we came in here that it might be the lowest rated Oscar telecast of all time.
Really?
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is we're sick and tired of it. We've had enough.
Hollywood has no more morality on that stuff. They have no real basis on anything. I don't think they really believe in anything. They blow whichever the way the winds blow. They do their own thing, and if something gets called out, then they jump on board. They give you what they think America wants you to hear.
Well,
and that's basically it.
And I think the problem too is that they really won't feel it, I think, until people stop going to see their movies, and I don't see that happening because everyone wants to escape from life and go see a movie.
Yeah, I mean, we still like movies. I mean, it's funny too because the telecast overall. I mean, Kimmel at times was actually pretty funny. I mean, he did make fun of the Harvey Weinstein stuff and he pretty effectively, I thought. Again, why didn't they do more about it before? But still, they handled it in a funny way, I thought. And there was a great moment where they went across the street to an actual movie theater that was in the middle of a screening, and they took Margot Robbie and all these huge stars walked into the theater, and they just turned the lights on, and all of a sudden these celebrities in the middle of the Oscars was in a normal theater, and the people were going crazy, and you realize that it was actually a cool moment where they recognized, hey, the rest of the country aren't our enemies. I guess they're just. I
would have been like, get the hell out of!
I'm watching a movie.
Did they refund?
If Margot Robbie was there, that yeah, you might be accepting of that. Oh, okay.
I wish you could go behind the scenes of some of these places. They are the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. They are the worst things to be a part of.
At the award shows?
Yeah, at the award shows. They're all slapping each other on the back. It's so much idolization and glorification. Yeah,
nobody loves Hollywood more than Hollywood.
Oh my goodness!
All right, I'm gonna get Jason a few drinks sometime and see if he'll get these stories to me. We've got to take a break. We're coming back next.
And 49.
For E-Block. Welcome back. So for those of you who have not gotten a chance to catch our show, we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background on what we're about, you know, why we're here right now. We want to discuss the news and why it matters to you. Why should it matter? I feel like there's an information overload.
It's really kind of why it matters to us.
Yeah.
But why should it matter? It should matter to you because it matters to us.
Thank you. That's right. We're like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people watch the Glenn show on demand, so you might not necessarily roll into the next show. But in case you don't know this, Glenn is there. He's sitting in this seat. Usually, that's why the set looks so much better today. But he's sitting here every day with extra analysis on the topics of the day, and we all kind of hang out and talk about them. And it kind of gives you a chance to see different perspectives. And it's an extra half hour of Glenn every day, which is already too much, I admit.
Yeah, so remember, if you have any questions for the guys during the show, you can use the hashtag TheBlazeY. That's WHY. And we are back up next. We'll see you then.
Yeah, I am now.